In life, we encounter people every day, all of whom have stories to share. We rarely take the time to ask people their personal stories, many of which will touch, move, and inspire us in some way. Matt has a passion for making authentic connections and learning about people from all walks of life. He has lived a life of giving back to the community and making a difference in people's lives. Are you ready to meet fascinating people and hear some inspiring stories? The Matt Hilton Show will introduce you to a world of possibilities you never knew existed. Sit back, be present, and enjoy. Here's your host, Matt Hilton.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Hilton and you're watching The Matt Hilton Show. Today's guest is a great friend of mine. We've been friends for over a decade and we both work in the real estate industry. He's been in the circus, he's worked for Club Med, and he's now the chairman of the Texas Realtors. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss this interview of this fascinating person.
Inspired, experienced, customer focused. Find a mortgage that fits your needs with Maria Leach at First United Bank Mortgage, specializing in construction and closing all types of loans, including jumbo, portfolio, conventional, FHA, and VA. A tenured team, outstanding service, competitive programs. Finance your dreams with Maria Leach at First United Bank Mortgage. mleach.firstunitedteam.com, 214-316-7915. mleach@firstunitedbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's show. And today's guest is Russell Berry. Russell Berry and I go way back. We have been friends for a long time, and I wanted to have him on the show because I actually find him to be very fascinating. And so he is currently the chair of the Texas Realtors. And being in the same industry, that's how we've known each other for all these years. So Russell, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. When I walked in, you told me we haven't talked for a couple of years.
Yeah,
which is weird, but it seems like yesterday.
It really does.
Because we, work in the same business. We're around the same people. We talk about each other.
Yep.
So it feels like it doesn't feel that long, but we have known each other forever.
We have. We've worked together at the same company. We've served together in different aspects within the realtor community, and yeah, it's just been great. And it's really good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Good stuff. So tell us a little bit about who Russell Berry is. Like, where are you from? What have you done in the past before you became a realtor? Yeah, we'll start there.
So that's kind of a loaded question. So how long do we have? Because
we have about 40 minutes.
I like to talk about this subject.
Right.
My favorite subject is me. No, I'm just kidding. So I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, to a real estate family. And I promised myself, and I promised my mom, because she was a real estate broker, that I would never get into real estate. And fast forward 30 years, and now I'm chairman of the Board of Texas Realtors.
Right.
But it was a great life. I will tell you, my mom always took great care of us. She had her own brokerage. She was a pioneering woman back in the days, owning her own brokerage and having agents that worked for her. But I did see how much work she put into it. So that was kind of, when you graduate from college, especially when your parents pay for a lot of your college, you don't want to go and work for them and everything. You want to go out and make your own way. So I went roundabout a few thousand times, had a great time doing that, and ended up in real estate. But just before real estate, I was actually working for a large restaurant company, managing a couple of their restaurants around the DFW area, and my trigger was 9/11. So 9/11, I was actually in a restaurant in the morning, and one of my cooks came up and said, "Hey, did you see what happened to the World Trade Center?" I was actually at that point driving an hour and 20 minutes to work a 10-hour day, and driving an hour and 20 minutes back home. And it was a lot of work. I mean, I probably worked 6, maybe 7 days a week for a while. And I said, what can I do that I wouldn't be working for a company that either does or doesn't value their employees? I won't talk bad about a company at all. But how I can be my own boss and how I can be my own entrepreneur. And I sat back and I said, what do I know the most about? And I reflected back on a decision that my mom made me make. And that was when I was one of those kids that lived at home until they possibly got kicked out. So let's say in my early 20s, maybe mid-20s, my mom said, if you're going to live in this house, you're going to get your real estate license. So that was back in 1987.
So you already had your license.
So I did, in another state. Now, I didn't do anything with it. And again, I said, I'm not going to work in the real estate business. So what did I do? I moved out. Got my real estate license, and then I moved out. But I didn't just move out. I moved out of the country. So I moved, I actually lived in the British West Indies, in Mexico, and in Switzerland, and in France, and a couple of other places working for a vacation company. So, I learned some other skills there, which I know you're going to ask me about, but learned some other skills there. And, took all of that together and ended up making a decision to get into real estate, knowing what I knew then. So would I have been successful back in the 80s? Probably not. I was a kid. I was like, I'll open the door, and if you want to buy something, great. But now I completely understand that our business really is about customer service. It really is about making your client happy. You can't be, thinking about yourself and everything. So that's kind of my roundabout way of how I ended up in real estate. And then this position as Texas Realtors chairman, that was kind of a fluke. I will say that, I moved up in my local association, which was right here in Dallas, and ended up being the chairman there. And some folks took notice of what I did and how I got along and how I kind of brought people together and talked to them and ran that association. And they said, well, why don't you throw your name in the hat for Texas Realtors? Little did I know there was a lot of politics, and politics
of course,
was involved in that. There was a lot of politics, but I prevailed, actually won a couple of elections, and then this is my year of serving as Texas Realtor Chair.
That's fantastic. And so let everybody know, what do you do as Texas Realtor Chair? I mean, do you still sell real estate?
I do.
What does all that look like?
So the position Texas Realtor Chair is a volunteer position. I get paid $0, and they've actually doubled my salary to nothing.
Right.
But it is basically giving back to your industry. And our industry is really tasked with protecting private property owners' rights. There's nobody in the state of Texas, really nobody in the country, that looks out for people who are homeowners. And a lot of what we do is taxes, and this is kind of an interesting time of the year when people are looking at and protesting their taxes, but do they really understand how the tax rates are set? So a lot of it has to do with that, with advocacy. We also take care of the educational requirements for people to keep their license. We are a self-policing agency or industry, so we have to look out for the way that people are using our MLS and taking the code of ethics seriously and things like that. So we work together with the local associations and the national associations, basically everything that has to do with the real estate industry and protecting private property rights. So my job as the chairman of the board is really to make sure everything runs smoothly. That's what I will say. Make sure everything runs smoothly. We have 149,000 realtors in the state of Texas.
What?
That's a lot.
That's
so
a lot.
You can imagine that that the things that are important for folks out in Amarillo probably are similar, but not always the same as the things that are important in Houston, or McAllen is different than Dallas. So we kind of have to mold it all together and find out what works best for the entire industry.
Wow, interesting. And I'm going to ask a question that you may or may not know the answer to. I'm pretty sure you do. How many licensees do we have in the state of Texas?
So there are more. I don't know the exact number, and I will say I don't know the number because it changes daily, but 86% of the licensees in the state of Texas are Realtor members. And so that gives me a little bit of an edge here to talk about the difference between a real estate licensee and a realtor. Basically, realtors, we abide by the code of ethics that's set forth by the National Association of Realtors. It's a trade organization. So at the end of the day, we are the only ones out there looking out for this organization. There are licensees that don't have to be regulated by the code of ethics, and our code of ethics is very in-depth. I mean, it basically tells us what we can and can't do, and I look at it as kind of like a golden rule type thing. You know, you wouldn't badmouth another agent, or you wouldn't go behind the sign, is what we call it, and try to get their business and say bad things about them or whatever. But there are people out there that are licensed by the state of Texas that don't have to work as a realtor member. I would never say anything bad about them, but I would just be very, very careful on who you chose to be your realtor. The great thing is, in the state of Texas, we have such adoption into the real estate industry, into being a realtor, that normally your agent will be a realtor. And that's because the benefits they get by belonging to this trade organization outweigh what they would get if they didn't. And a big benefit is our MLS. Yeah. So our MLS is proprietary data that we have through what we do, and we enter all of our information in there to be able to share it with other realtor members so they can do their job better.
Yeah. It's great stuff. Y'all, again, this man, he's so full of knowledge about real estate and the industry and private property rights, homeowner issues, HOA issue, all sorts of stuff, right? So I want to go back to when you said that you work for a vacation company.
Yes, okay.
And you made the comment like, you're going to ask me these questions, or you're going to ask me about this later or whatever. What am I going to ask you about? Like, how do you know what I'm going to ask you?
Okay, so because it's just, it's so interesting. So the vacation company I work for is Club Med. And the reason I went to work for them is when I graduated from college and got out of the parents' house and everything, I just wanted to go see the world. I kind of wanted to do a gap year, which turned into a gap maybe 5 years. But during that time, I got a job with Club Med. And in Club Meds, they have, in certain vacation villages, they have circus training schools. So I got pretty good at that. I actually did that on my off time, which, to tell you the truth, at Club Med, there's 0 off time. Because they want you to be with the guests. They want you to be on the beach or, wind surfing or, doing crazy things with them to keep them entertained. So one of the things we had was a circus training facility, and we had like a trapeze and high wires and stuff like that. And I just went and did that because I enjoyed it. I liked it. I wanted to see how I can push myself. Well, it turns out I got pretty good at it, and I was hired on by a circus right after I got fired. So, that's
another story.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. It had to do with sinking a boat. It wasn't a big deal. But anyway, so the circus kind of came out from me enjoying, being with people and learning about different cultures and, and vacationing, really being on a full-time vacation for a few years. So I got pretty good at that. And a friend of mine was already working for the circus and called me and said, hey, we're looking for somebody else to join us. I said, that sounds great. Remember, I just got fired, so didn't have a job, right? So that sounds great. So I signed a contract with them, and I ended up doing a high wire act, a trapeze act, a teeter board act, and a couple of other acrobatic things with 0 experience as an acrobat. Like when I grew up, I was not a gymnast. I was not I was pretty athletic, but it just came because I thought, hey, let's give it a shot. I will tell you, it was the hardest job I've ever had. A lot of people think it's the performing part of it is really cool and fun, and it is. But there's a lot of a lot of practice that goes into that, a lot of setup, a lot of testing the equipment, a lot of testing yourself, a lot of hitting yourself in the head. That might be the problem with it. I might hit myself in the head a few times, but there's a lot that goes in there. But I completely enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and it is one of those things when people talk to me and I mention, oh yeah, I used to work for a circus, they all want to hear about it. So it was it was a great part of me growing up and being who I am actually.
Yeah, because every experience that we have, right, growing up and just going through life, right, makes us who we are today, right? Yeah. So what would you say that you have brought forward from standing on that high wire or, how has that impacted you as an adult today?
So I am pretty fearless. I mean, that's the thing. I will try anything. I will do anything. I feel like most of my life has been taking chances and risk and, just putting myself out there. But I will say this. I think from working for the vacation company probably had a lot to do with how I've become the person I've become. It really opened my eyes to different cultures, different people. I ended up having to learn to speak French. I never spoke a word of French, but because I was immersed in certain cultures in certain countries, and that's a French company, I had to speak French. And then I had to get on stage and introduce people and talk to people in French in front of French people that were critiquing me. So, it was a great learning experience. And I will say that I still keep in touch with a lot of those people. We actually have a Facebook page for all people that have worked for Club Med before. And we talk about, mostly lately it's people who've died. But, we talk about, what we learned and how we love that. And we wish that we could be back there again. And how we are so fortunate to actually have that experience. And again, I met people from all over Europe, all over the United States. I mean, it was just kind of a melding pot. And I'll tell you a funny story. This is how I knew that I was going to love this. But my very first day working for Club Med, I get down to the Bahamas, and they had lost my luggage. So I think, oh, this is great. I'm moving down there for 6 months because we used to stay in a village for 6 months and then move to another one. And that's how I got to all these different countries. But I get down there with basically no clothes, no clothing whatsoever. So the club said, hey, here's a voucher. Go buy whatever clothes you want. Well, the only place to buy clothes are the Club Med clothing. So you are wearing Club Med, everything right, left, back, and forth, right? So that very day that I get there, I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do? I hope my clothes were out. I'm not really that worried about it and everything. And they said, oh, by the way, part of your job is to be in the shows at night. So I said, oh, good. That sounds like fun, musical theater. This would be kind of, something out of my wheelhouse. This would be cool. So I get there and they say, well, this is your position. You need to learn this real quick. Tonight, you're going on stage, and you're going to be in the show. So I said, okay, I can learn this.
Okay.
But I figured it out. Got it done. Then I left and I practiced some more because I didn't want to look like that guy who didn't know what they were doing. So I show up for the show. They said, you need to be here about 15 minutes early because we need to get you fitted for your costume. I was like, oh, great, costume. This is awesome. So they get me in the costume place. They put on the pants. The pants happen to be white tuxedo pants with the little satin stripe down the side. And I said, okay, they fit. That looks good. You know, looking pretty sharp here in white pants.
Right.
And they said, okay, well, you can come back. Your number's not till the end, so just go out there and watch the show and everything. I'm thinking, I got pants, but I'm, whatever. Yeah. The rest is cool. So I go backstage, just before my number, and I put on the outfit. It was the white pants with a gold lame, no, it wasn't gold, a silver lame shirt, little tank top. So I put that on. I think, okay, this is interesting. It's the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, whatever. And a pink feather jacket with a white cowboy hat.
Oh my.
At that point I was like, this is it. I'm hooked. This is wonderful. And I go out there on stage and do a number for whatever rehearsed to this number called Champagne that I did and in this number a scantily clad showgirl would come out in a acrylic large high heel with bubbles flowing out of it and everything, and that was my introduction to Club Med.
Wow.
So this is perfect. I am in the right place. This is awesome, And from there, I ended up doing all kinds of things with Club Med, but I ended up being, after 2.5 years, a dancer with Club Med. That was my job. So I ended up I learned a new skill, not taking any dancing lessons or anything like that, but I was in every show, and I completely enjoyed that. And it was kind of like, who gets the best roles in the show? And I ended up getting the best roles. Yeah. After the pink the pink jacket and everything. It's cool.
A pink feather jacket.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. That's great.
Yep. But they don't tell you about that. You know, when they're fitting you for the pants, they don't tell you about the rest of the outfit.
I don't want you to run off.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that's great. I love your stories. Love your stories. So, as you're working with Club Med, and you're visiting all these countries, do you have a place that holds a special memory for you of when you were there?
I would say probably Saint Lucia. So I go down to Saint Lucia to help open up a club. I ended up staying in that club past my 6 months. It was a great experience, but then because I did that opening of that club, then I got to choose where I wanted to go. And at that point, not many Americans, myself, who didn't speak French, would be able to go to Europe. So I said, well, I'm gonna shoot for the stars. I want to go to St. Moritz in Switzerland and do a winter club teaching skiing. Mind you, did not ski either. So I actually ended up going to Switzerland, learning to ski. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And who can say that, all because I lived in the British West Indies, in Saint Lucia, in a wonderful place that I actually got to go back and visit just before COVID. So just before COVID, I was on a cruise and it stopped in Saint Lucia, and I rented a car. That's another story because we had a flat tire. But I rented a car and went to that club and walked around the club, and they let me, go back to my old room. I was there. Also, while I was there, we had a hurricane that went across. And so we got all of the guests off the island, but by the time we got the guests off the island, the employees had to stay there, board everything up. So I rode out the hurricane in that club. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was just fun, and this is the thing. When you have a job that you love, and everybody says this, you never work a day in your life.
Right.
I never ever considered that working. Now the circus was working. The circus was definitely working because we had to swing sledgehammers and do all that stuff. But Club Med, when it's my job to go surfing or skiing or be in a show and stuff like that, it's so much fun. It was great.
Wow, and I feel you have the same passion about being a realtor,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it feels like you don't work a day in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, real estate is different every single day, and you know this because we do a lot of business. And if you put yourself second and you actually have your fiduciary duty to the client, you really don't feel like you're working. You're just guiding them through and being a trusted expert. Right. So it's exactly what I feel like with Club Med. I'm really not working. I work really hard. I am working, but it doesn't feel like a job. Yeah. Which is why I can come do this with you.
That's right.
Because I can leave and you call me and say, hey, let's go talk for a little bit. I can be out here and talk to you, and then as soon as I get done with you, I can go do some business.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that is the beauty of being an owner of a business and being in real estate, right? I mean, it's very very easy to do those type of things.
But let's make sure that people know it is a very hard job.
Oh,
and
for sure.
you'd be the first to say this because it takes a lot to get to that point where you are successful. People don't realize that you spend a lot of money to make a lot of money. And my big thing this year as I go around talking to realtors is we need to make sure that we are promoting our value and telling people what we do. Because often people think we just stick a sign in the yard and all of a sudden the offers come and then you make a lot of money. They don't know what you've done to get that listing, to promote that listing, to get that listing ready to go to market, to field those offers, to talk to the clients, about the best thing for them, and then they make the wrong decision and something falls out, and then you have to get another client going, and it is a true job. But if you're good at it and you've got a good realtor, it's really a seamless process. But there is a lot that goes into our profession, and for people, I always say to agents, and when I used to be the broker for that company, I used to say the worst thing that could happen to you is that you have a multi-million-dollar deal, your first deal, because that'll never happen again. And you're constantly working hard to make a living, and people look at it like this is kind of a part-time job and we're just doing it for fun and everything. It truly is a living, it truly is a profession, and there's value to using a realtor who knows what they're doing.
Yep, for sure. So Russell, reflecting back on your life, like you've had some inspiring, stories and fascinating things that have happened and things of that nature. And is there one person that was influential in your life that made an impact on you as a person? And who was that person? And how did they make that impact on you?
Yeah, so I have to think about that because there's been so many. And I always say somebody who gets to my position didn't do this on their own. So it's a combination of this person and that person, and little lessons you learn and little things you hated about this person that you learned about yourself and everything, and truly what you learned about yourself too. So, but I would say it was truly, and I mentioned my mom before, it was truly my mom. Watching my mom start her business from scratch as a woman back in the 70s and the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, when she started the company, and then how she grew it and how she ended up having her own money and her own job and her own profession, even while she's raising kids. And I can tell you, I was not the easiest one. My sister was probably worse than me. But anyway, it is inspiring to see that people can do this and they can be very successful. And so, like I said, I never wanted to work for her. But then when I did get in the real estate business, she was the first one that I called. She was always the person that was there to give me advice, to help me through situations. Your broker is always the person that you should be talking to. And I'll bring up another person. My very first broker was very influential in my career. Most people don't realize this, but we as real estate agents get to choose where we work. We are not interviewed so much by them. We interview the brokerage that we want to be affiliated with. And my very first broker basically told me and made me get involved in the association, said that this is your industry, and if you care about this industry, you'll do something about it because nobody's going to do anything other than you. And so, so that was the Bowmans over at Century 21 Mike Bowman Company. They were a wonderful family. I say I outgrew them, but they probably outgrew me actually, because I wanted to go out and open up my own company and be my own broker. And so I did that. And I'll tell you something, somebody said to me years ago, when I opened up my own brokerage, they said, "Who are you with?" And I told them the name of my company, which no longer exists because I'm with the national franchise now. They said, "Well, everybody's got to try that once." and I thought about that the entire time that I'm my own broker, thinking, why did she say that? And then 7 years later, I realized, yeah, she's absolutely right. Everybody's got to try that once. And it works out for some people. It did work out well for me, and then it catapulted me onto other things. And so now, just back in the selling world and completely love it. And that was a decision too, because as well as I do, when you get involved in association business, it may take away from your own personal business. And that's a choice you make, right?
Yeah.
But when I was getting into the leadership of Texas Realtors, I felt really it wasn't fair to my company, the time I'd be taking away. I mentioned to you I was in Midland yesterday, and on Thursday and Friday I was in San Antonio, and all this month there's been a lot of traveling. And I booked my flights like a month ahead of time. So today when I was in the office was all booking flights, not working on business, but all booking flights for May.
Wow.
So, it does take a little bit away from your business and everything, but it has to be something you enjoy, something you're really passionate about. And, I was really lucky to have people in my life that taught me that giving back is really the most important thing about being a business owner, is giving back and mentoring and helping other people succeed. And that really helps you succeed.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because, giving back is important to me. So, like, why is that such a big deal to give back? Like, what does that do for you? I mean,
Right.
I know it can benefit other people, but how does it benefit you by giving back?
Well, most of my giving back right now is to the industry. And my industry has some flaws, you know them all, don't you?
Some.
No, but we're only as good as our weakest link. And so I look at that as an opportunity to educate people, to help them succeed and to be better as a group. So that's a lot of what I do. I have been involved in some charities and some things like that in the past. And really what it does for you is it's kind of fulfilling. It makes you a well-rounded person. It keeps you grounded, that's for sure. I mean, it definitely keeps you grounded, and it makes you appreciate your life. So, recently I've been kind of like awakened a little bit by some things that people said to make me truly realize how important this position is and how happy I really am and what good things have come into my life. Sometimes you sit back there and say, oh, I've got to travel to Midland, or I've got to book another flight. I'm super excited to be able to go there and have this opportunity and be able to share with people. And I think that's what giving back really does, is you have those experiences and those opportunities that you can tell people how it benefited you. So I may not have been as so eloquent as talking about how it truly benefits me, but I think the idea is really it gives you those stories and those situations that you can rely back on and say, this is exactly why I do this job.
Yeah. No, and I see this in you, and I'm going to pat your back a little bit here. So
Stop my head.
Here it goes.
Yeah.
No, but you do. I mean, you love investing into other people, and that is very evident in just the time that I've known you, and how much impact you do have on others. You have a very positive spirit about you, and you find opportunities, to, like I said, invest in others. And I really appreciate all the time that you are investing into our industry. With that being said, Russell, like, there's got to be some times that you just have one of those days, or seasons of life. Like, going back, is there a season of life that you can remember that was just like one that you look back on, you're like, man, I wonder why that was happening at the time, but now looking back, it's like, I understand now.
Yeah, so I'll tell you about this position, and you're very familiar with how I got here. It was not easy. And, when somebody says, hey, they tap you on the shoulder, hey, you should throw your name in the hat, you think, oh, great, that's the easy street, I'm going to win. Well, I ended up having some issues with my campaign and some things that happened that truly tested friendships. And, a campaign is weird because you're asking people to choose one side or the other if you're contested. Now, that's the funny thing. I think I've probably been the only contested race in maybe 10 years.
It was a while.
Yeah, it's been a very long time. So, but that's also the politics too, because when I got into this race, I didn't realize that I was thrown in there to contest someone else. So anyway, it got to be a big mess. And there were some ugly things and some bad things and people that wanted to, have their voices heard. And that was probably the nicest way I could probably say that.
Right.
But, it tested friendships. But I will tell you, and you will be very happy to hear this, all of that has come full circle. All of them have come around and said, you know what, you were the right choice at the right time. All those friendships have been mended. So I kind of look at it again as an opportunity, and it really has turned out to be a blessing in disguise, that I look at this as that was something that was going to test me to see how I was going to react in this position. So I look at it as, if that didn't happen that way, I would not be this kind of a leader.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say, any time in my life, I will tell you, I have enjoyed the heck out of my life. I was thinking about this the other day. There have not been any jobs that I've ever had that I haven't loved. There also haven't been any jobs that I've gone for that I haven't succeeded in either. So I remember one time I was managing restaurants. That's kind of what I did for a long time, managing restaurants. And I ended up leaving one restaurant for another one. And I thought, oh, this other restaurant, I made a bad decision. This other restaurant is just not, what I'm used to or what I liked. And I ended up kind of looking through that and figuring out how I could help them be better. So I invested all my time into systems and processes and things like that where they benefited. And then I got them to a point where I really loved it, and I left. I said, "Hey, you guys are good to go. I'm ready to go on to something else."
Right.
Moving to Dallas. So I mentioned that I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Through my travels, I've lived in a lot of different places, and in other countries and everything. But just before I moved to Dallas, I lived in Key West, Florida, which people think, "Oh, that would be so cool." It was challenging. Because Key West is a vacation spot, it's a party spot, it is where people go to you think Austin's weird, Key West is even weirder, right? So people go down there and they just kind of let loose. Well, I realized pretty quickly that I could not survive in Key West. There are all kinds of influences and all kinds of things that go on. And if you're waking up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, going to work and staying out until 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, doing that every single day, that's why I look like this. Seriously, that's why I have no hair and wrinkles and stuff like that. But I realized real quickly I had to get out of there. I loved every minute of that. I loved being in that position. But I look at it as another growing and learning experiences that you kind of, at some point, have to grow up, And that was after all that playing around the country and doing all my things. So I would say that, every experience I turn into a positive experience, which is probably why I have this kind of attitude. And I love it when people say that you're really positive and upbeat and stuff. This is just me. I don't know how to be anything other than this. Maybe at home you might have, Gibson, don't you?
Oh yeah. So
yeah, he might have another view of this. But even at home, I really try to be like, hey, what are we gonna do? Or this sounds like fun, or let's go here or whatever. But I also look at it too as, if I'm not out there experiencing great things and people aren't able to get a good, experience from me, then I've kind of affected people in a negative way. And I don't ever want to do that. So I want people to be very, very happy to be around me. That's kind of how you make friends and lifelong friends. And you and I that would never even have known each other other than the real estate industry. So, and I didn't have to move to Texas either. So you're very lucky that I moved here.
I am very lucky that you moved here, for sure. And what you just spoke about, I've mentioned this in at other times, is that we need to be lights in other people's lives, right? And we need to help their light shine brighter and not put a damper on it. And we need to surround ourselves with people who will make our lights brighter, right?
Yeah.
So you're definitely one of those people who, I feel like makes people's lights brighter. And I see you surrounding yourself with people who do the same for you. So
yeah, and another great thing about that too is, if you are upbeat and you have a positive influence on other people, when they're having a hard time, or when they're down, or when they're doing things that they know is not a good reflection on them and everything, they can look to you and just say, hey, I need to talk to you, or I need to be around you, or let's go do happy hour, which we need to go do happy hour.
We do, for sure.
But it's a really great position to put yourself in when people are looking to you to be a good guiding light in their life. So I was talking to you about this just before we got on here, but I don't ever really think anything is that important, because this is who I am, and this is just my life, right? But some people have brought to my attention that, it's a pretty big deal. And I guess it is a pretty big deal, but I never even thought of it as something that would help my career, or anything that, could be anything different than a learning experience in helping other people. But it is a pretty big deal. And so now I'm kind of starting to think, you're not such a bad guy,
Yeah, and you're not. You are an inspiration. And I want to ask you a question, because people ask me this all the time, because I'm involved in a lot of organizations, and I'm busy, and I've got 4 kids and all sorts of stuff, right? They're like, how do you do it all? So I'm going to ask you that question, because I know what my response is. How do you do it all?
Yeah, I guess, I've really never thought about how I do it. I just get it done. And the other thing too is, in real estate, when I knew I was going to be taking on this position, and many people who have had this position before me have told me your business is going to suffer, your personal life is going to suffer. This is kind of an all or nothing type thing. I prepared for that. So I created a team in real estate. So I'm out of town. They take care of my stuff, and they're very great about it. I love the fact that they don't say no. So they're kind of people like me. But I have other people to lean on too. My family life is so great. So I mentioned Gibson earlier, but I don't even think he knows what I do for a living, which is okay. And that's perfectly fine. And when we have a calendar at home and it says overnight in Midland, overnight in San Antonio, going to Washington, D.C. The other thing too is I have to organize the dog sitter too, because he has a full-time job. So I prepare. I completely make sure that everything is taken care of. And I guess I've always been like that through my jobs, as being a very detail-oriented person. So when I know something's coming up, or if I know that I've got things on the books, or if I know something's going to be taking away from my personal life or my professional life, I just make it happen, And it's really because of the passion. It's because you want to do it. And I wrote something down the other day about leadership. Leadership is really a choice, because you don't have to do this. I don't have to do this. You don't have to do what you do. But we choose to do it, and we choose to do it because there's benefits that outweigh the negative parts of it. And the benefits are that you can affect other people positively. You can, help your business. You can make a great life for yourself. You can change. You can affect change, or be, a mover and shaker in your industry, or whatever it is. So I kind of look at it like that way. But there is a lot that goes into that gets you prepared to be able to come onto this show with a day's notice and no questions that are prepared for you, and be able to talk like this. So
I knew you could handle it.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew you could handle it. So going a little deeper with that, there's this thing called work-life balance, right? And there are some people who subscribe that it exists, and then there are others that say, nope, life is never in balance. So where do you fall on that spectrum?
So this is a philosophical thing, and I guess my work and my life is balanced. I don't really know what that is. I mean, it's my life, right? So it's what I want to make of it. If I want to just completely walk away and say, now I want to concentrate on this or whatever, or even do more in the real estate industry, I can do that. But I don't know that that I can even consider what a work-life balance is. I've just done this, and this has just been kind of what I've given to. So maybe my work part is taking off a lot of my balance from my personal life part, but everybody understands it. Everybody gets what they want to get out of it. I don't think there's any such thing as work-life balance. It's all what you want to make of it, And there are people who even work harder than me in real estate, like you, who probably will say the same thing. I mean, it's just kind of what you want to give about it, And you can turn it off. I can turn it off, Yeah. I am the most boring person when I get home at night. I truly am. Like, I watched 3 episodes of FBI Most Wanted last night and all that stuff. I just got done watching Dope Sick. Have you seen this?
No.
Oh my God, it's a Hulu series, whatever. Binge watch the whole thing. It's really good. It's about the opioid pandemic.
Okay.
But I'm, that's my downtime, and and I'm watching that with someone or with my dog. My dog probably gets the worst part of the work-life balance, but but it is, it's kind of what you want to make out of it. So I feel like I'm balanced.
Yeah.
But you may look at me and think, yeah, this guy's just real estate, but it's really not.
At the end of the day, I think it has to do with your joyfulness and your fulfillment.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, your work could be your life and vice versa, but it's all about you being fulfilled.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because that's how we are able to thrive.
And,
right?
I don't even know what I would do without it.
Yeah.
If you took away real estate or being involved in leadership or the industry and stuff like that, I would probably do it with the florist industry or the arborist industry or whatever it is. I would do this wherever, because that's just how I'm wired.
Yeah, for sure. So
I'm going to be an arborist.
An arborist, yeah. You be an arborist.
I don't even know what that tree is out the window here, or this plant is right here
You're just
behind
going to go
us.
cut some branches off.
Yeah, but I'll learn it. So yeah.
Just like you did with the high wire.
Absolutely. Yep. I'll learn it.
Ski instructor and all that sort of.
Yeah.
Outside of real estate, Russell, what is your proudest accomplishment?
So I would probably say just being a good person. I don't break the law. I don't speed. I mean, these are some things that I learned as a child. And I would say that just having the great upbringing that I had, and everybody thinks that their childhood was either great or miserable or whatever you learned, whatever. And I look back on my childhood and I think I could not have had better parents. I couldn't have been in a better place. We didn't have a lot of money or anything, but we learned really great, valuable moral skill, moral compass things and skills that would keep, my mom would always be like, you need to be on time. And to this day, I arrive places early. I don't know, it's just built into me. So I'd say my greatest accomplishment is turning out to be a really decent person. However, there could have been a pathway that could have taken me down a whole nother place. And you make those decisions and you learn from your mistakes and everything. And I truly feel like if I didn't have every single experience in my life, I wouldn't be this person.
Yeah.
And I look at them as all great experiences, even the ones that, could have gone another way. I look at that as, whew, you made it. You don't have your hair anymore, but you made it.
You made it.
Yeah, you're here. You're here, and now it's truly time for you as a decent person to help and teach other people to be that way.
That's fine. Inspiring.
It's kind of silly, but yeah.
No, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. So as we wrap up here, I asked you to come, to maybe think about 3 things.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So with the nonprofit that I'm the chief happiness officer for, we inspire imagination because people have stopped dreaming, right?
Yeah.
And so we help people realize their dreams and their wishes from any walk of life by making connections. So I want to know, we focus on 3 pillars: a person you want to meet that's living, a place you want to go, or an experience you want to have that you haven't already had. And that may be kind of hard because you've experienced a lot in life. But
There's
what
more.
What are those 3 things? And so that if any of our viewers can help make a wish or a dream come true,
Wow, okay.
that would be awesome,
Wow,
right?
wouldn't that be cool? Okay.
Yeah.
So I am going to be very topical right now because I would like to meet Elon Musk. Now, I've been reading a lot about him, right?
Okay.
He is kind of now see, I won't get to meet him if I say that, but he's a controversial person.
Sure.
Okay, let's say that. And people
I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, okay. That wasn't what I was going to say. But anyway, he has completely affected the way we do our jobs and our business and our life. So everything about what he's done in his short time, I mean, he's not that old, is kind of inspiring. I may not always agree with it, but I may not always agree with it, but sometimes I think meeting people that you don't agree with is probably better than you being around the same people who are going to tell you be the yes people all the time. So I would love to meet him and find out how he got PayPal started and what his background was to get it sold, and now getting into the SpaceX thing, and now Twitter. Don't get me started. But anyway, it's just one of those things that is a person who has been able to affect a lot of people in their life, whether it be good or bad. But I just like to get into their head and figure out how that works.
Sure.
So that's one person.
He would be a fascinating person,
wouldn't he?
right?
I mean, absolutely.
So let's get him on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be good. And I don't want to promise you anything, but I do know somebody who knows him, who may have sold him some real estate.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, but yes, and he lives here in Texas, so so maybe our paths will cross at some point. Yeah, exactly. So that's somebody I just think is fascinating. Just a great source of entrepreneurial spirit. Just how you can get out there and take one thing and turn it to another thing and really raise the bar for everybody else. So that's one person I'd like to meet.
Okay.
One place I'd like to go. I have been a lot of places. I haven't been to, this would be very controversial right now, but of course I'd like to go to Russia. I would like to see how people in Russia live and think and breathe and talk. Now, I don't want to get into any politics type thing, but it is a completely different way of life. And I was affected by this a little bit a few years ago when I went to Czechoslovakia, or the Czech Republic. Remember back in the day when it was Czechoslovakia, and they were communists, they were behind the Iron Curtain and everything. And I went to a communist museum that they had there, which showed the way they lived behind the Iron Curtain. And I'm guessing it's probably not like that right now, or or maybe it's going to become more like that again. But I would just like to know how the government really affects these people's lives, because we think the government affects our lives a lot. But I am guessing that in certain countries like that, the government affects your life a lot more. So I'd love to go over to Russia. Things are going to have to calm down a little bit, you know, and of course, I probably look like the American of all Americans, right? And I speak English, but I could speak French over here. So.
Just go over in your pink feather jacket and you'll
that
be okay.
That may not go over really well either. So I might have to put that one off a little bit, but that would be fascinating to me, is just go over and talk to the regular Russian person and see how their life differs from mine.
And hear their story.
Maybe even a Russian real estate agent. I mean, this is somebody who we do the same thing, but they're, I am sure, and I don't know, I'm just talking out my nose here, but I'm sure that the way they do real estate in Russia is completely different than the way we do it in free, capitalistic United States. So I just love to, see how other people are.
Sure.
What was the other one?
Experience you want to have that you haven't had already.
Experience.
Yeah.
So
what are you dying to do?
So this is really crazy. And I don't even know if I've thought about this all the way through. But I've always, and you would think that I probably have done this, but I've always wanted to jump out of a plane. Now,
you haven't jumped out of a plane?
No, I haven't. I've never done that. I'm not afraid of heights. I've just never had the opportunity. And one of your friends just did that recently, Betty. You remember Betty DeVinny?
Betty, yeah.
She just did that recently, and I thought, well, Betty can do it. I can do it, right? But I was also thinking about, remember the older Bush president? He jumped out of a plane when he was like 80 or 90
he'd do
or
it for his
whatever
birthday.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if that's a good present or not. But I think that at this age, it would probably be a lot different than if I did it in my 20s. I may have a heart attack and die. But it might be one of those things where you can learn more now about your risk tolerance and your fears when you've had some of those experiences than when you were 20 and you were just reckless and doing things. So I think that would be a cool, fun thing to do. Now, don't anybody come on the program and say, hey, we got to get Russell to go do this, because I got to think about it even more. But that was just off the top of my head. Some experience that I would really like to do is just to push myself to another limit. You don't even know about this, but I've had some recent medical scares lately, which is so stupid. It's just, it's just getting old.
It's just getting older.
These things don't work like they used to or whatever.
Older.
I'm old. I'm going to say I'm just old. But that also puts into perspective, some of the things that you haven't done, maybe you should do them now or before it's too late or before, anything else could happen to you where you can't do things like that. So I'm just thinking about, what have I not accomplished? And I would say that's really superficial, isn't it? Now, I said something, but I just think it would be something to test your limit. And then again, I would have a great story to tell. Even if I didn't jump out, I got to the edge and I'd be like, this is a great idea. This is great. I said on Matt's show that I would do this. So here I am, but I'm not going to do it right now. But it would just be, I think, a really great, another great story to tell. And everybody says always to tell your grandkids. I don't have any grandkids. So I tell everybody else. Anybody who will listen to me. Anybody who will listen to me, I will talk to you. I'll have happy hour with you and I'll talk to you guys. So yeah.
That's fantastic. So the last question I want to ask you is, take the audience and let them be your younger self. What one thing would you tell your younger self knowing what you know today?
So somebody actually asked me this the other day and they were very surprised about my answer. And my answer, and this is my own personal answer, would be don't do anything different. Because like I said, I've learned from every single thing. Maybe I would buy Apple or something like that just to be very wealthy and but I wouldn't do anything different. My younger self would probably say, go ahead and take all the risk, do all the things you want to do, learn from every experience, have fun, be out there, be outgoing, meet as many people as you possibly can, and just make your life full. Because I can't even imagine that if I didn't have all of these experiences and all the people in my life and everything that I've done, I would probably be a really boring person. Like I said, I sit at home at night and just watch TV. But that's probably what I'd be doing during the day. Or, wouldn't have this experience to come talk to you or whatever. So I would just say, get out there, do it. Do it exactly like you would do it. Nobody can do it any better than you or any different than you. You've got to make those mistakes. You've got to make those choices. So just do it.
Just do it.
That sounds like a commercial.
It kind of does. Don't say the name.
Yeah.
Unless they want to be a sponsor.
yeah, exactly. Or maybe I could meet the president of that company too.
Right.
So anybody know that person? So yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to have people like Russell here with me, and thank you so much.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's been a blast, and there are things that I learned about you today, even though we've known each other for a decade or more, right? It's like I've learned some stuff, and this is because a lot of times interactions with real estate are about real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so today I got to see a little bit more about Russell and what's going on in that head of yours. And
now the Pandora's box is open, and you're like,
right.
Maybe I shouldn't have somebody like that on the show.
That's great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Love it.
Yep. Same here.
The Matt Hilton Show would like to thank our sponsors, Hilton Realty Advisors and Maria Leach with the First United Mortgage Group. The Matt Hilton Show would also like to thank our partners, the Who Do You Know organization. You can find out more at wdyk.org. If you'd like to contact Matt or know a fascinating person with an inspiring story that would make a great guest, reach out to the show at themattHiltonshow@gmail.com.